Welcome, everybody, to the newly named Health, Spirit, Freedom podcast. And today is going to be a doozy, an amazing doozy at that. And we are going to be talking about aliens, ETs, UFOs, abductions, Starseed awakening, and psychic protection with my interview with Zeta. Now, this is basically going to be an intro to everything that is to come on this show. Yes, it is renamed from Health, Humor, Life to Health, Spirit, Freedom. And there's some amazing things coming up that is for you guys that I'll tell you about in just a little bit. Today we're also going to get into the spiritual aspects of schizophrenia and my personal spiritual paranormal attack story. Stay tuned for this segment I like to call Conversations of the Open Mind.
You are now listening to Conversations of the Open Mind, a show full of both controversial and sometimes out-of-this-world, mind-blowing topics as we work to present the many possibilities of our extraordinary world. We don't tell you what to think or tell you what to believe. We simply present the amazing possibilities and let you follow your inner truth. An extraordinary episode of Conversations of the Open Mind begins now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Health, Spirit, Freedom podcast. Yes, we went through a name change recently to reflect what is now going to be presented on this show. And not only that, but now these episodes are going to all be available on video form too, as well as the podcast. And they'll be available on YouTube and Real.video, which is a YouTube competitor, which prides itself on not censoring a lot of videos. So Real is in REAL.video. And I really like them. They're kind of a growing site, but the reason they started up was because of YouTube starting to censor a lot of videos, especially spiritual related videos like we're talking about today. We're going to get into the barn burner of crazy stuff today. And so I decided to start putting stuff on Real.video. This will be the first thing up on there. When I have more time, a lot more videos are going to go up. And from here on out, whenever a podcast is posted, it will always be available in video form. I'm going to be really increasing the presence online now. I just went through a major spiritual awakening, guys, and you will hear all about that at a later date. I know I've teased it for the last few episodes, but the time is not right to tell everything about that now, but I will let you in on some stuff that's been going on. And to sum it up, what's really been going on is a lot of internal healing, like healing myself from the inside out. And I've realized through this experience that this is how, by healing ourselves inside, this is how we change our reality. You know, we heal traumas, we heal anything that we could have encountered in the past. We let go of attachments, addictions, and that kind of stuff. And as a result of that, we raise our vibration. And when we raise our vibration, we attract a much high vibratory life, which is the main topic I'm going to be teaching from here on out. There is a lot going on behind the scenes that I'm building to help others out there to do this kind of stuff, to be able to raise their vibration. If you're unhappy in your life right now, unhappy with your health, whatever it might be, this system that I'm developing that's going to be online based and very inexpensive, because I want it to be very inexpensive so everybody who needs it can afford it, is going to guide you right through weight loss to improving your health naturally, to everything you have to do to raise your vibration to attract, through the law of attraction, that life that you want. If you guys haven't listened to the Psych K podcast, that's what really got things rolling for me, is doing a Psych K session. So that's the last one that was recorded. So I highly recommend listening to the Psych K podcast. Those guys do amazing work. And it's hard to really for them to get testimonials for that, because it's very delayed. You know, some of it's instant, but a lot of it is, Psych K is changing your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind runs your life. It's your subconscious beliefs shape your life. So if you believe that you're poor or you don't deserve money, you're going to be pushing money away from you. If you believe, I'm wealthy, or I can be wealthier, or I am wealthy, or whatever, that's just one example. You'll attract a lot more money to you. And there's a lot more that goes into this, which means a lot of karma has to be cleared through various ways, which I'll get into at a later time. Traumas have to be cleared, and those are what we call spiritual blocks. blocks that prevent you from getting those things, even if your beliefs are in line. So it's a whole entire process to go through, and I'm putting something together for you guys for the near future, beginning 2019, that will address all of these things and help everybody through this, because this whole planet is going to be going through this very soon. And there's some people that are just going through it a little bit early to kind of be the way showers. And it's not been easy, guys, let me tell you that much. It's been a very difficult process. But my goal is to make it easier for anybody else that will go through this process at a much later time. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe to this channel, which wherever you may be watching or listening to the podcast, to the YouTube channel. youtube.com/thatfitnessguy is where you can find this. And it's called that because YouTube won't let me change the name from like 8 years ago, the link. So it's called That Fitness Guy was the original name I went with, and I was just doing fitness. And, the most recent incarnation of this venture being health, spirit, freedom, and now things are really starting to take off for this channel. And there's been a lot of work I've done behind the scenes, and I'm really happy about it, really excited about it, really happy to get myself out there in order to help others, because that's all I've really ever wanted to do. But there are a lot of inner work. Before you can help other people, you have to help yourself. You have to do the inner work. You have to heal yourself, and then you can show others the way. And I'm always one who wants to lead by example. I do things before I teach things. So that's what I pride myself on, and that's what I'm going to do in the future as far as helping people in that manner. So I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here. Actually, I'm sitting here in my boxers right now, but those of you watching on video can't really tell that because it's from the top up. But it's actually sweltering hot here in my room in Maine. And, it's the middle of October, but it feels like it's the middle of summer for these 2 days. It's 77 right now. I already took my AC out, and it's going to be like 87 tomorrow, so it's sweltering in here. My Alaskan Malamutes on the bed over there, also sweltering. So today, guys, we're getting into some crazy stuff today. Not crazy to those spiritual-oriented people that are have learned about this stuff for years like I have, and Zion and I have a really casual conversation during this time. Hi, Zion. Welcome to the show. Awesome to have you.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for having me here. It's a pleasure and honor to be on your podcast.
All right. It's a pleasure to have you. So I read your book, or most of it, a while back, and I don't even remember how the heck I came across you. I must have searched you and added you or something. But, if your book caught my interest because, no, actually, you know what? I think I found you before I found your book, now that I think about it.
Well, I'll have to check that out because I'm surprised that you have my book. I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I came across you before I found your book, and it's a very interesting book. I mean, I love that kind of stuff, so it piqued my interest right away. So I read most of the stories. Some of them, my memory is a little bit hazy on it because it was a while ago that I read it, but it's very interesting, so I definitely have some questions on it. So for those of you that are listening, we're going to talk about some crazy stuff right now that's, to some people, it's not that crazy. Like, we're going to talk about it like it's normal because it feels normal to me. I don't know. I'm sure it does to you too. It feels like it's not a conversation. And like, I'm someone who has had none of these experiences at all. Like, I'm not psychic. I'm not like anything like that. I've never seen a ghost in my life. I've certainly felt the ghost in my life. And I've certainly have strong intuition, like thought wise. But I've never had any of those experiences ever. I've just been so interested in it. Like, I've studied the heck out of it, and it's just something I just, study in my free time. So I found it very fascinating. But I've been told many times, because I've gone to several intuitive healers, and which is kind of like a psychic Reiki type healer. They all do different ways. And as far as going to see mediums that have kind of done some spiritual healing for me too, and a lot of them have kind of said, you have a major connection to extraterrestrial somehow. That's what I'm getting from you. So, I mean, I don't know, but it's always very interesting to me. And the first spiritual thing I ever came across, not knowing anything about it, was a YouTube video that was a message from the Pleiadians. That was the first thing I ever came across. And then ever since then, I was beyond interested in it. So, and who knows if that was even real or not.
Well, you know what, Matt? That reminds me of how I started to awaken as a starseed myself. And for those of you out there who don't know what the term starseed is, it's a soul of ET origin, extraterrestrial origin, who has reincarnated on Earth as a human being for a specific mission or purpose on this planet, which usually consists of doing something for the greater good of all involved, not just the people, but the planet herself as well. So when I started to have this spiritual awakening that involved the whole starseed combo on the side, the first thing that was triggering that awakening was a video on the Pleiadians, but it was actually an interference in news television broadcast in 1977,
I think I saw that. Yeah.
where there was, yeah, it was this voice of Rilon from the Afstar Command, and it was a long video. And whenever I listened to it every single night because there was something in it that just kept calling to me. And whenever I did, I would stargaze while listening to that video, and that message eventually started to sink in. You know, like a message of peace and of love and of joining together and eliminating the destruction that we tend to cause this planet and among each other. So I can relate so much with you and how you got started with the whole thing, because I had a similar thing going on with the Pleiadians, and I feel it's because the Pleiadians are easier to reach, and they have an easier time reaching out to us because they are closer in vibration to us, not just in physical looks, but also it's kind of like a vibrational match, because there's a bunch of people out there who have seen the Nordic looking ETs, and it's because, one, they can relate to them and they won't be intimidated by them, and second, they have a much easier time materializing on this plane to prove that they are around, whether in their ships or just them showing themselves physically and literally interacting with you one-on-one. So it's interesting that you had a similar experience to me, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing that happened with my most recent girlfriend was I actually ended up telling her about the Pleiadians, but before I met her, she had told me how when she went to, I forget what it was, some type of spiritual session or like massage session or something, and she was told that she was of Pleiadian descent, or that's what this person was getting from her too. And I mean, she had no idea who the heck they were when she told me about it, and I kind of explained it to her just from research. So
yeah, because it's kind of difficult to, like, for example, a person who doesn't know what a starseed is or what the Pleiadians are and where they come from and stuff. It's very challenging and even sometimes impossible, depending on the level of open-mindedness of the person. It's challenging to open up and understand what's going on. And so it doesn't surprise me that some people have a hard time coming to terms with it. Because when you explain it to them with such open-mindedness, they still might not believe you, and they think you're as crazy as a box of cereal, as we say in Puerto Rico. So I don't even know what a box of cereal has to do with being crazy, but whatever. It's something that needs like baby steps. Like not everyone is prepared. Like, I know that Pleiadians are pretty, but that doesn't mean that people will accept, oh my gosh, my soul is of alien origin. Like some people have an easier time, others have a harder time. It's just like anything in life. Like, for example, if you're a bodybuilder, you might take 1 year while another person took 6 months to build their body.
Totally. Yeah, it's a good
we're
way
all
to put it.
unique and different, so we cannot force ourselves to follow either a fast track or a slow track, because we all have our own different pace of evolution.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. I couldn't have said it better. What was I going to say? I got to start writing down my thoughts when you're talking, because I tend to forget and space out. Because I literally had like a thought I wanted to say, and I'm like, oh, what is it? Oh yeah, this particular person was very open spiritually, but yeah, she was still very shocked when I had mentioned that, it's like that's kind of alien origin. And another story based off that ended up happening one night, and I'll never forget it. This was probably shortly after I met this person, and it was shortly after she had done like a really long, like intense Reiki session with me, and I was more open than I had ever been. I had literally been walking with some of my clients earlier that week, or actually no, that hadn't happened yet. But what did happen after that was I'd been walking with clients later that week, and I would start feeling their emotions, like their anxieties and everything. I'd never felt that before. And the first time I ever felt someone else's emotions was my girlfriend's at the time. I was driving home like an hour from where my parents lived and heading back home, and she was like in a panic and the reason why, she was very psychic, intuitive, could sense things around her, is because she said there was Pleiadian aliens like in her house, like in spiritual form, so invisible. And I was like, I don't know, why are you freaking out over it? And she knew that they weren't bad, but it still freaked her out. And like literally driving home, before she even told me that, I could like literally feel like her emotion, like the anxiety of it. And I was like, why am I getting so stressed out right now? So anyway, I go there, and like I'm trying to like calm her down and everything, because I obviously, like, I know that, we would know if it was something bad, because, we felt something bad shortly after that, which I'll get in a minute. But these, didn't feel, whatsoever negative. And apparently she's had these most of her life, but didn't really know what it was. And they're there to deliver messages or whatever, that kind of stuff. The same night after that happened, the whole Pleiadian thing happened. We were like on her porch, and this was a crazy experience that I mean, I know what it probably was, but it's like something that's it was freaky at the time. And this was my first, I can't say it was my first experience with this, but it was like one of the main ones that I remember the most. I was sitting outside and looking at her fence, and there was two shadows like from posts nearby. So there was one shadow. They looked identical from posts. So I look past this one shadow, and all of a sudden, like, chills go down me, and like fear goes all the way through me. And I'm like, what the hell? And I look at this other shadow, it doesn't do that. And I look back over, and it's like fear, chills. I'm like, what the and then I like tell her, I was like, does that look weird to you at all? Like that shadow? And she looked over and she starts freaking out. We were both like freaking out after. And now I wouldn't freak out in that scenario, but that was the first time I'd really dealt with that. So, I mean, whatever it was something that, was negative, that wasn't supposed to be there, that I couldn't see, but I felt, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't have to see in order to perceive.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot to many people who have abilities, but they don't know that they have them because they don't know how to tell, like, how do I know if I have this or I have that, until they experience it. It's that type of thing that you have to experience yourself in order to know what is going on. And I feel though that sometimes there are powerful downloads during Reiki sessions that can open you up to being more receptive to energy, because again,
Yeah.
Reiki is energy work, and this can not only help the person heal certain things and aspects, and but also it can help the person to amplify things that they already have in themselves. So I feel that it all goes hand in hand, basically. I know that a lot of people tend to say, oh no, if it doesn't happen right away, it's not valid, it's not connected. And I say that's BS, because some things take longer time to develop than others, but there are triggers that help you to open up to that. And I feel that not only do you have to be aware of the good, but you also have to be aware of what we consider to be bad, so that we know how to distinguish them from each other, so that we can take the necessary precautions and methods of taking care and protecting ourselves and our aura and energy field, because not everything that has a friendly face means well for you.
Absolutely. And that reminds me of one of the questions I want to ask you when you talk about psychic protection in your book and just in general. So I've always tried to get a straight answer about that, like exactly how you put psychic protection on you and how that works. And I've never been able to get a straight answer, like a simple straight answer for someone. So what's your take on how to protect yourself with psychic protection?
Psychic protection can be very simple or very complicated. It depends on how much you like complicating your existence, like I do. Like, I love complicating myself on purpose.
Oh, I do that.
But but psychic protection basically means when a person shields themselves with certain methods to protect not just themselves physically, but energetically. Now, when it comes to psychic protection, it implies an energetic protection that you can either do physically or mentally through visualization and meditation. So a way to psychically protect yourself physically is by saging, like smudging your home with
Okay.
a
Yep.
bundle of sage. It can also mean wearing a pendant with a protective stone that you feel attracted to. Usually protective stones are black obsidian, black tourmaline, smoky quartz, but amethyst is also a very protective quartz. And a lot of people don't know about this, but amethyst transmutes energy. So it makes it a protective stone that can shield the person from energy that can bring discord to the person, because amethyst with a purple light can transmute and transform energy from one type to another type. And therefore amethyst is used not just for developing your clairvoyance and your third eye by meditating with a stone with you, but also it is used to transmute energy to light by the powerful violet color that some amethysts tend to have, either violet or purplish and such. So it can be used also for psychic protection in the physical sense, Well, in the more ethereal sense, usually meditation, where you picture yourself inside a bubble, usually either of golden light or white light. But I
Okay.
feel, though, that psychic protection through visualization works better when you use your favorite color, because you are customizing it to your liking, to your energy. So you're adding your energy to this protective shield that you're picturing yourself in, and it has a higher chance of working better for you rather than following what's trendy or what everybody else is doing,
Gotcha.
if
Okay,
that
that makes a
makes
lot
sense.
of sense. Yeah, and I've used actually all those methods before, and I didn't know that that's what it referred to.
Yeah, it can be very simple and to the point. Like, a lot of people tend to overcomplicate themselves. Like, oh no, you need this many quantity of quartz. You need all these bundles. You need to take bath salts. Like I don't know, like all these things. Like, sage your bedroom and your pillow and everything, and clean your quartz under the moonlight so that they protect you. Like, you don't have to go through all these complicated methods unless you enjoy doing them. However, we all have our own magic within ourselves. Uh, these are just tools just to help us focus, but we already have the magic within ourselves, and it just takes tuning into it to work with it. Like crystals and saging bundles, everything is there as a focus. They can add a little bit of bonus, however, they're not meant to be relied on, because again, the power is within ourselves, and it's time to realize that and get used to it and start implementing it in our spirituality and day-to-day life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a huge point to take home is we all have the power within ourselves. And once most of us realize that, like we're gonna be pretty much as a human race pretty unstoppable. So
Exactly. There's a lot of waking up to do to a lot of people, and it all starts with yourself, because just one person can create a rippling effect that can wake the masses as well.
yeah, exactly, totally. And I feel like, people like us and all the people that are started before it, doing the spiritual stuff, I feel like we're all part of this awakening, for whatever reason. And whether I'm a starseed or not, obviously you are. I feel like that was what I was going to say earlier, that when you were saying about how mission and purpose, like I've always my entire life I felt like I was here for a reason. I felt like very different from other people, you know what I mean? Just that feeling.
Yes.
And then even now, like when most people are motivated solely by money for like online business and everything, like that's like secondary to just feeling like I have to do it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
That tends to happen to a lot of starseed. Like, that's a way to tell that you are one, because you feel out of place, you feel that you don't belong here. Sometimes you feel that you're adopted, that you don't fit in with other people, even your own family and friends. And also you have that inner calling, that you have something to do but you don't know what it is. And those are some of the triggers that tell you that you are a starseed yourself. And when it's kind of tricky, though, because there's a lot of confusion in the spiritual new age communities, because a lot of people tend to have a huge ego, so it's very important to keep yourself in check, because there's some people who start to adopt other belief systems that are kind of out there, like claiming that they are Princess Commander X from Y planet, here to do Z thing,
Hmm.
and bow down to me because I am important. So it's very important to be discerning. Discernment is huge to
Yeah,
have
definitely. Yeah.
on these communities.
Yeah. And I am completely adamant about never being that kind of person.
Like, do you think, Matt, that you are Archangel Michael in human form?
Yeah. You
I've
know,
heard that one a lot.
yeah, you know what? Funny you say that because my roommate has joked about that before, about him like being that he kind of got. I don't know. He's kind of a joker, so I don't know if he was completely serious or not. But he's had like a lot of crazy experiences, like certain abilities, and he starts getting an ego about it. I'm like, dude, come on.
But it's funny to think about it, but some people take that very seriously, and I'm like, I'm all in for your self-empowerment, intelligent and for being a strong and powerful person, but there's a fine line, and there's that brings me to the whole narcissistic topic and the whole spiritual community. A lot of people tend to take you literally when you claim something, but some people are just in it for the attention. That's why I say that discernment is very important, so that who to trust and who not to trust. Again, it's kind of like a play between your mind and your heart. Your heart feels good because the person is nice, but your mind is telling you, well, I don't like this because I have analyzed that. And a lot of people in the spiritual community tend to discard logical thinking because they feel that intuition is the only way. But actually, intuition alone can be just as deceiving as just being a logical person. So it's all about bringing balance into everything.
Absolutely. And I really liked, I saw that in your book, and I really liked what you said about that. And that was the, what's his name? The captain, was it commander that relayed that
Oh,
message?
the general?
The general, yes. Yeah.
I no. In that case, it was the captain, because I get the ranks confused. But one of them, I think it was the captain, told me that balance was very important between intuition and logic in order to make the decision that is the highest good, not just for yourself, but for all involved. Something like that. So it was interesting because I thought he was being deceiving. Like, what? I need logical thinking? Like, that's evil. That is not something that the Pleiadians would say. But I was deceiving myself because, again, I am bringing myself to a state of unbalance. Like when you choose one over the other, you are unbalancing yourself because you are neglecting the other side of you that is there. And I feel that has to do also with shadow work and really diving in to find out, why do I feel bothered by this? Why do I want to reject it? And why do I not want to include it in my life? Like, making yourself those questions can really help you to dive in and maybe even come up with a conclusion as to why you're being a certain way, so to speak.
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally. Going off of that, you said you were referring to the Pleiadians a second ago. Was it a Pleiadians that was the captain, or I thought it was a reptilian that you said you were?
No, they are Draconians, yes.
Okay.
But at the time, I used to think, well, Pleiadians always talk about following your intuition and not paying attention to the mind, because the mind is where the ego lives. Like, those were the teachings that I was exposed to at the time. So I thought that the captain, who was a benevolent Draconian, was being deceitful with me. But I had no idea that I was actually being deceived by the teachings that I was reading, and that I was pretty much neglecting a huge important part of myself that I have always used, but I wanted to get rid of after getting into the spiritual community, simply because other people told me to.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Going off of that, what was I going to ask you? What was your, well, first of all, just for the viewers, like if they're not familiar with Pleiadians and reptilians, I don't know if we mentioned that yet. They're a type of, whether you want to believe it or not, like you can kind of entertain the idea or believe it, but they're two very well-known races within the, I guess spiritually or ET familiar community, where the reptilians are generally known as, obviously being negative, but not all of them are. It's kind of like looking at humans, right? And some of us are negative,
Yes.
some are positive. and the Pleiadians are looked at as mostly positive. There's probably some negative ones. I mean,
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, and they're just ET races. You can look them up online in Google, and you can get some images of them. You can go to the Gaia Network. I don't know if you've watched that at all, but they have some really interesting stuff on there. And you can kind of get more info on that. But I was going to ask you, what was your first experience as far as, I believe it was probably in your book, your first experience of when you realized that you were connected to these beings somehow?
Oh my gosh, there is so much that I can get into. Like, I don't have an idea where to even begin. Like, all I remember is that everything started when we moved back to Puerto Rico, because I am originally Puerto Rican, in my family as well, but we moved to the USA just to, just to find a better living, have a better life, because things were not really looking good in Puerto Rico. But what I remember is that when my first experience was pretty much back in the United States when we used to live here. I am originally from Puerto Rico, but we moved here because we wanted to seek a better quality of life. So during those 2 years, my family saw a UFO. I remember it was summer of 2009, but I had no idea what was going on outside. But when I went to my bedroom to get a charger, I saw a silhouette out of the corner of my eye standing outside my window. But I brushed it off because we lived on the third floor, so it didn't make sense that someone would be standing in the window. But after my family arrived from picking up the groceries and out of the car, they told me that they saw this UFO. And that's when things started to make sense, because both events happened at the same time. Like, they were watching the UFO outside when I was on my own experiencing the silhouette. So that started me into researching more about ETs and the UFOs and things like that. So after moving later that year to Puerto Rico was when I experienced my first alien abduction, which was by the grace. And I know it happened because I was awake. Like, it was 5 a.m. I was staring at the digital clock and I was angry. I was so furious in bed because I couldn't fall asleep. And there was a storm that was raging outside, and like the lightnings would strike once in a while and light up the whole room. But at some point, a lightning struck and everything just froze in time. Now, it could have been a lightning strike, but it could have been the light from the ship itself. When I become aware of three silhouettes out of the corner of my eye standing in front of my bed, like at the end of my bed, I looked and I saw the three short grays wearing black uniforms staring back at me. And as soon as I tried to roll out of the bed to jump out and run away, I blacked out. And so there was a 2 hour missing time that I still do not recall. But that was pretty much my very, very first experience before having my Starseed awakening. Like, I would say 2 months later was when I had my Starseed awakening.
That's okay. What's crazy, but also just, I don't even know what word to use, is that exact experience has happened to so many people. Like, so many people have had that same experience where they're abducted in that same type of manner, and things happen to them, similar, like in your book you mentioned the hybrid children. Like, there's so many stories out there of that same exact thing, and it's like, you can't just say, oh, all these people telling this are completely crazy. All these people have never talked to each other in their entire life. And
I know.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like, you can't just kind of put past it, obviously. And I'm talking.
The evidence is overwhelming. There is much more evidence than can possibly be debunked by skeptics.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think it's just not in the mainstream, and that's kind of where our society is. They're only looking at the mainstream a lot of time. And I think that's changing. But I feel like it'll definitely come out more and more and more, for sure.
At least we're having a good start with CNN talking about the Tic Tac UFO and interviewing the guy who was part of this whole program from the Pentagon to investigate UFOs. Like, that was huge. Like, that was like partial disclosure.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a show called Cosmic Disclosure that's on Gaia. It has a insider, Corey Good, David Wilcock, and they're always posting updates about everything, and they're saying disclosure is getting a little bit closer, and it'll kind of trickle out similar to that.
And I'm starting to believe that, because I've been hearing about disclosure is near since 2009, and nothing has happened.
I'm right there with you.
It's kind of hard to believe sometimes.
Yeah, I just kind of, like, I was getting, like, back when I first started reading this stuff, I was like, oh, I'm getting upset. Oh, this is not going to happen. You get pissed. And now it's just like, I'm just like, it happens when it happens, so.
Yeah, but like, we can get a big surprise one of these days. You just never know.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
You know how excited I'm going to be when that happens? Just because I love this stuff. So I'm not going to be scared.
I love it too. Like, it's going to be very exciting. And you know what? It's a huge step to see it not just on CNN, but on Fox News. And I know that some people don't watch either one because it's mainstream, but it's important because still they're getting out there to huge quantities of people out there that really do rely on them for information. So just imagine all the minds that receive that information, and who knows if among these people there were a lot of them who were triggered into having a spiritual awakening or recalling an experience,
Yeah,
or
totally. Yeah.
maybe they got a sudden interest in investigating the topic. Maybe that investigation will lead them to a spiritual awakening, which was what happened to me. Like, it's still very positive that it happened on the mainstream news media, because that way a lot of people can be awakened or pushed into investigating and looking into the topic.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great point. Yeah, I completely agree. Let me see where I can go next here with these questions. We'll jump around a little bit. So I think I read that you were a Wiccan or involved in like witchcraft. Was that true?
Well, I do my little things here and there that has to do with magic. So
Yeah, I was
yes.
just curious about it because, obviously like witchcraft gets a bad name, but I've always been curious about it. If it's like, I don't really think that it's this whole entirely evil thing. It's probably similar where it's like, different sides of it. So yeah, what's your take on that? Like, what kind of magic do you do?
Well, honestly, I don't even tag my magic or label it as either good or evil. I feel that magic is just like everything in life, just like energy. Everything is neutral. It just depends on what type of energy you want to add to it. Honestly, I feel though that witchcraft and magic have received a bad rap for several couple of, I don't know, like centuries, I would say. Centuries, does that even make sense? Like,
Probably, yeah.
I feel like I'm talking about 1,000 years, but yeah, it goes beyond like the Victorian times. It goes back into ancient Egypt and Greece. Like magic has always been present and has always been practiced by a lot of people. It's just that when newer religions started to come in, they did not understand what they did not know. So they started to demonize what they did not know, just so that people would convert to their belief systems just to stay safe. And because of this, there has been wars and people getting murdered for having different beliefs. So there has been a lot of hunting done for those who were witches at the time. And I believe there are still places around this planet that still do witch huntings in the modern day, like in 2018 still. So uh, magic is something that I tend to do for self-help and also to help other people. But there are cases though where people need a boost of protection or to reverse a situation that has been sent to them. Because I am Puerto Rican, so in Puerto Rico, we tend to practice voodoo and Santeria. So they are two types of practices that are highly prominent and very common over there. So I was raised in an environment where you could see people practicing magic and doing spell works. So it was something that has always been with me, that I've always been curious about, but didn't really get an interest in it until a couple of years ago, like 2016 or 15, where I started to get more serious and into it, mostly to help other people. I know that some people say, well, magic doesn't work because if something is meant to happen, it will happen. Well, how does psychic protection even work? It works due to intent. And like everything, yes, herbs used in your magic are just tools for focus, and the magic is within you, but they can add a little bit of boost to your practice and your life and your energy. And I feel that unfortunately, in this planet, we have to protect ourselves, not just physically. Like, I'm sure that some of you out there would carry a gun if it's legal to do so, or have other methods to protect yourself from physical harm. So why not take opportunities to protect yourself energetically from possible psychic attacks? Because not everyone that smiles at you is your friend. I like to say this a lot because it's a very important reminder. But what about those that you cannot see? Because some people in this physical plane can send you people from the other side to torment you. And if you don't have a strong mind, like a strong mentality and shield around you, you can be vulnerable and exposed to receiving psychic attacks that can come in different forms. Like it can come across in the form of bad luck, it can come across in the form of depression, or feeling things that you normally don't feel, that you know do not belong to you. So an empath can feel things of other people, but sometimes it gets confusing and muddy because not everything that you feel belongs to another person. Sometimes it's being sent to you to harm you. So that's where magic comes into play to help you protect yourself, so that you can block that out and perhaps even send it back, because that's another thing. Everything that you send out will return. So naturally, if someone tries to harm you, everything will be sent back to them. It's just how the law of karma works.
Gotcha. And as we were talking, you know what's funny is before we had this interview, I had a feeling this was going to happen for whatever reason. I literally just felt something in this room, like just go right through me.
Wow.
Like that's why I just jolted for a second there. I was like, you know,
Yeah, I saw you there. I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I talking too much? Like, it's like,
No.
like I don't know what's going on. Like, oh my gosh, like something's happening to Matt.
Yeah, you know, I don't know what it is because honestly, my senses aren't strong enough to pick up on what it is. I just know that, you know, it's something. So whatever it may be.
Like sometimes it can be the energy. Like I know that I tend to be so passionate about it that I tend to send like a lot of energy to the person. So I apologize if I overwhelm you.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt it a couple times before. That was just, it was a little bit intense for a second there, but so let's see here. And I feel like the more that these kind of topics are talked about, I feel like the more it attracts, you know, these things to kind of, I don't know, visit whatever they might be.
Yes, it happens a lot. You know, when I have private sessions with people, it tends to happen, you know, because it's not the same to be on your own than when you get together with a second person. You know, it just takes two people. Like, you don't have to be in a crowd of 10 or 20 people to feel it. Like, just with another person with you on a similar path and vibration, it's enough to cause things to happen. Because again, both energies are in a similar vibration, so it will attract other energies around that may be related to each other, who will want to tune in and pop in and see like what's going on and how can we help and co-create and bring this in a wider way. But at the same time, downloads can happen in that form as well, when you receive those hits and pushes of energy as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you what it was, but I'll let you know if anything comes out of it.
Like, stay tuned for your dreams, because sometimes if it doesn't come in the physical form, usually they will reveal to you the answer in the dream state.
Yeah, you know what? As soon as that happened too, while you were talking, that crossed my mind as well. So I don't know if it's an intuitive thing or what, but
We are connected.
so yeah, you know, I've learned the last, you know, year or two, I've really learned to listen to my intuition a lot. And what I've really realized is, you know, spirits, whether it be loved one, aliens, whatever it might be, they'll talk to us in the form which sounds exactly like our own thoughts. And if it's hard, if you're not used to telling the difference, it can literally sound like just a thought. But now I'm
Yes.
aware, like, of many different things. Like, I have a hard time knowing what is my own thoughts at this point. Like, I get funny song ideas, and I'll often be like, "Oh, you know, thank you for that," because it could be someone else giving me that idea. So, so
Yeah, they communicate also through songs, and you will hear them either randomly on the radio, on the internet, or in the dream state. Like, I tend to receive different song clips on the form of dreams, and usually those are messages from them from beyond, because sometimes they cannot communicate, so they can only send you things that you are familiar with so that you can recall them easier. Because
gotcha.
sometimes if they're new there, or if they used to be on earth, they will have a hard time trying to communicate in the form of dreams, because it's more like an energy thing from their part. It's not you, because you are open and receptive, but it's them, because they are no longer in this dimension. They are in a much different one, so they tend to have struggles like communicating in a way that can reach out to you clearly. So they tend to use like a medium on the way, no pun intended, but in the form of dreams, so that you can get the message clearer. So it can be in the form of song clips like lyrics or random quotes that they might give you in the
Yeah.
dreams. Like you might see a piece of paper in your dream where it's a message in there, or you might dream of your own computer and see something in it, or you might have someone else approach you and tell you something in the form of a dream, for example. But that tends to happen also in the physical plane. There are people who out of nowhere, like let's say that you blew a tire and someone helps you out and they tell you something out of the blue that has nothing to do with what just happened, that makes you really wonder, like, because sometimes it tends to come across as something that you were already wondering about, and this person out of nowhere who doesn't know you confirms it. So it's interesting how they communicate in everything and through anyone in the least expected way. Which is why I don't really ask for a specific confirmation to be given in a specific way, because I am blocking them from reaching out in various ways that I can also understand and get a message.
So here's a question kind of relating to what we talked about earlier, which I forgot to ask you. So I've had situations before, and maybe I just didn't do the so-called protection right. But I've had situations where there's like many situations where there's been really negative spiritual beings around. And like, it seems like no matter what we do, we can't get rid of them. You know what I mean? Like whether it be the psychic protection or saging or whatever, like I'd had to call in someone that knows what they're doing in order to get rid of them. Like, it's like, well, like, I'm not really sure what would you recommend doing if that sort of stuff were to happen again?
Well, you have to analyze first, why do you think it's there on the first place? What it's trying to show you, why, because a lot of people tend to discard the questions and jump into doing something. But if something is persisting, it's usually because there is something you are resisting. So before getting rid of it, you have to analyze the whole situation and ask yourself questions to see, how does this apply to my situation? Why is this affecting me? What is it triggering in me? And what is it bringing up to the surface, or what is it causing to happen in my environment? Like what's causing this thing to affect my environment, and in what way? Like really question the crap out of what's going on before you make a banishing spell or a ceremony to push it away and unplug it from your energetic field and area where you are in, that you are experiencing it. Because sometimes persistent energies tend to stay with us until we get the hint, and they usually tend to carry a lesson with them that you need to be aware of. Is it being more empowered? Is it being more authoritative about it going away? Because sometimes they come in on purpose to test your boundaries and see, I wonder if Matt is going to push me away or just deal with me and not learn how to push me away, for example. Let's say I'm a spirit, and you have to really question first before coming to a conclusion, because sometimes these energies are not exactly malevolent. They're sometimes there to teach us something. But if you are already being threatened, energetically speaking, when it's a damaging energy that's really interfering with you and like trying to screw you up, that's when, in that case, analyzing is good, just so that you get the questions out of the way, just so that you are clear with yourself, but also so that you can come to the conclusion whether this is something you want to keep having with you or push away and unplug it from your ethereal system, so to speak. Which is where usually, if you're not exactly trained, because sometimes this is a tricky part, a lot of people tend to do banishing ceremonies and spell work to get rid of something, but their will of having this thing leave is not as strong as the energetic presence intent of staying. It's very similar to a narcissistic relationship. Like the target's willingness to leave the relationship is weak compared to the persistence and the desire of the narcissist of wanting to remain there, torturing and further abusing their victim. So sometimes it's not us. The problem is that their intentions are stronger than our willingness to push it away.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's something I was going to mention. Like, if I were to try to do like a banishing spell, I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean,
That's
I
another
would
thing.
like to learn that now that you've just mentioned it.
It can be as simple as getting a saging bundle and making a prayer in your mind, because that's another thing. Some people tend to pray out loud, but that is not recommended, because you are pretty much warning the energetic thing that is there with you of what you're doing, who you're invoking, who you're praying to. So I wouldn't say they get a backup, so to speak, but they can become more empowered because they are prepared, because they already know who you're praying to and what you're doing. So it's that type of thing. You know that there's a saying that walls can listen. At least in Spanish, there's a saying that the walls can listen. So this can be taken in an energetic way as well. So when you do a simple cleansing ceremony to push an energy away from your space and from yourself, uh, praying in your mind or holding the intention in your mind is recommended, because some people tend to think, oh, if I say this out loud with energy and with power, it will scare away. But that's not necessary. It's not going to happen exactly like that. They're only going to be warned of what you're doing. So when you do things by surprise, when you pop up out of nowhere with a saging bundle or a candle or a spray, because I know that some people cannot use a saging bundles, so spray is recommended. They sell saging sprays that you can use. Also, if the alarms are annoying in your home, a spray can be an excellent alternative so that your alarms don't go off. But it can be as simple as that to help you like push away the energy. So doing a spell work doesn't have to be like complicated, like with a bunch of candles and oils and herbs and things like that. It can be just as simple as having a sage bundle or Palo Santo. Like if you're not a fan of sage and how it smells like, Palo Santo can be very useful, and it's an alternative to sage as well. If some people have allergies and things like that, or you can't find a sage, but Palo Santo is a nice alternative that can help banish and cleanse away your space from any interfering energy.
Gotcha. Okay. As far as I've learned too, is raising your vibration kind of keeps them away for the most part, doesn't it? Like if you're experiencing a negative being, if you're trying to keep your vibration
Yes,
higher.
yes, because they rely on your negativity. They rely on your fear, on your anger, on your jealousy, on any emotion that affects you in a negative way. They feed off of that. So when you are in that low space, with your energy in a low state, you are pretty much open. It's just like picture yourself inside a bubble of your favorite color, and it's so bright because you are positive and uplifted and you are in a good mood. Now, picture that bubble almost like gone, like the opacity is so low you can barely even see the color. That is when your aura is completely open, exposed, and vulnerable to them walking into your energetic field and leeching off of the remaining energy that you have within yourself. This is usually where depression is triggered, because you are already vulnerable. So they take advantage of that to continue to suck you dry even further. And this is usually where stronger emotions like depression or suicidal tendencies tend to pop up, because you have already been open and vulnerable to them leeching off of you. So raising your vibration, not just through, because a lot of people tend to think, oh, I cannot be positive all the time. It's not about being positive all the time and blinding yourself to the real things going on in your life, because you want to be aware of what's happening around you. But what's about raising your vibration is not about living in a low state for the rest of your life. Yes, bad things happen, but you don't have to rely on that for the rest of your life. Like you have to pick yourself up from that dark space so that you can lift yourself up and build yourself up again. But at the same time, raising your vibration does not mean ignoring that you have to pay the rent but you don't have a job, because some people tend to rely, oh, the universe is going to open the way for me. But the universe is not going to open the way for you if you're not doing something about it. So there's a fine line between self-deception and genuinely raising your vibration. Raising your vibration does not mean ignoring the issues, but learning how to handle them and deal with them while not letting them get the best out of you and affect you in a serious, concerning way.
Gotcha. I think that was an awesome explanation.
Thank you.
And once again, I lost my train of thought. Okay, so what was I going to say? Okay, so yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And sometimes what's made it difficult that I've experienced in the past is sometimes once you're originally in that state without these entities affecting you and they come in, they make it very hard for you to kind of get out of that state because
Yes.
they're really having a strong effect on your emotions. I felt this myself before, as well as had family members like my little brother really extremely strongly affected by it, to the point where he was failing out of school. He was having suicidal thoughts. He was depressed. I had to literally, and he's not like into spirituality at all, so this took a lot of convincing, but I literally had to drag him to a medium that I trusted, that I'd seen before, someone who's, done, whatever you want to call it, exorcism type stuff, dragged
Yes.
him there and got him like healed however she did it. And finally, like a few months later, my brother's a completely different person. Like he's like getting straight A's in school. Like it's just like, it's crazy. So, but he was like,
Wow.
if I wouldn't have done that, I don't know what would have happened,
Yeah, we have to find ways, and that's why a lot of people don't believe in spirituality, and that's okay. But sometimes things happen that make you believe that, oh, something higher exists out there, and that's why there are people like yourself and myself who are that bridge between the ethereal and the physical, so that if the people that we love or people that we know are going through a challenging situation, we can help them. And a lot of people tend to say, oh, no one's gonna believe me because I'm spiritual, so they'll think I'm crazy. Who gives a crap? Like, just live your life and do what you want and believe in what you want, because I don't want to sound cliche, but you only live once, at least in this physical reality. I know many of you will not want to return to Earth. But what I'm saying about this is that if you have this life, enjoy it to the fullest, and be your most authentic self, because you never know who you're helping with by being your own original self. And this is a perfect example of what Matt just shared here, because so many of us are shy of opening up, of speaking and letting other people know what we're struggling with. But we're not alone. We're 7 billion human beings, more than 7 billion. And there's always someone out there who has gone through something similar to you who can help you out. Even if the person has not gone through that themselves, there's a bunch of people out there who are willing and ready to help you in whatever way you need to be helped. And I'm so glad that he is now having straight A's and like has completely changed, and I feel that you were the catalyst that he needed to break through that block, because some energies, it can be so, like, energetic entities can be so blocking and so limiting that the person becomes blind and they don't realize that it's not them that are blocking themselves. It's something external that has latched on to them,
Yeah.
that is preventing them from seeing that something is with them, interfering and bringing them down just to take them away. Because this reminds me of my mother's suicide attempt. If I didn't break into the bathroom just with a knife, I opened the door with a knife, I wouldn't have made it on time. Like, I usually am listening music on my big headphones, so it's a hard time to hear people talking to me. So imagine someone gagging in the bathroom, like, far away. Like, there's no way I could have heard her. But that day I didn't have my headphones with me. And when I heard some strange gagging, I went to the bathroom and I asked her, but she wasn't responding. So as soon as she wasn't responding, I stormed into the kitchen to grab a knife and open the door. Now, Matt, as you know, I'm like 100 pounds and she was like 150 pounds. So there was no way that I could have lifted her up because she was trying to choke herself with a sweater wrapped around her neck and trying to hang herself. There was no way I could have lifted her up on my own. I didn't have the strength to do so or the necessary muscle mass to do so. And I feel that there was a higher energy with me that just intervened, and maybe even someone walked into my body with enough strength to help me to lift her up and prevent her from doing that. And I feel that in your case, Matt, something similar happened, like someone stepped in through you to help him out so that nothing bad would have happened to him. And a lot of people have this happen, but they're not aware that they had it happen, like have a spirit or a soul or an entity, like an energetic being out there that sometimes walks in to your body depending on the situation to intervene and help you out, whether it's something that you're struggling with that you need help with yourself, or when it comes to helping someone else but you may lack something that they are able to step in and bring momentarily to you so that you can help them out.
I totally agree with that. And I feel like things of this nature is so common, but we just don't realize it. Like, I feel like everyone is going to have some sort of influence from some type of spirit at some point in their life. I feel like that's a very normal thing, especially anyone who's had, suicidal thoughts. I feel like that's almost always probably going to be a negative spirit. That's kind of a strong saying, but just from my experience, that's just kind of what I've gotten out of it. Like if I have thoughts like that pop into my head, I automatically know it's not me.
Yes. Yeah, because you know yourself. You know who you are. You know your attitude. That's why self-love and having a relationship with yourself is so important, and a connection with yourself, because you know when your thoughts are yours and when it's something else that's trying to sneak in through any cracks that you might have in your energetic field. Because sometimes we get hits, basically, to put it in a simple terms, when we are confronted with a negative situation. It's like we're taking hits in our aura. So when the aura starts to crack open, that's when these type of thoughts, uh, based on other energies, energetic beings, start to slip through the cracks and try to corrupt our minds. I think of it like in a sci-fi way, like a computer getting a virus and becoming infected. So
Mhm.
that type of thing, it's kind of similar like with the brain. Like you get external influence, like a virus that just pops in and tries to corrupt the entire system and change it. So it's very important that people out there have a close connection with themselves first, so that they can know themselves and what they want and what they don't want and what they're not willing to put up with. So that way they can have a healthy relationship with themselves. And this will help them also to have a healthy relationship with friends, colleagues, family members, and even in romantic relationships.
Absolutely. Something else interesting to bring up too is I do a lot of work with mental health patients, a lot of which have schizophrenia. And what I've really noticed from that, not all of them, but the majority of them, with schizophrenia, it's kind of a general term because they use that term, but it describes so many different ways of having schizophrenia. And what I've noticed is almost every single one of these people almost has like a different personality of schizophrenia. And honestly, in most of their cases, I don't even think it's schizophrenia. I think it's a spirit that's attached to them that's completely influencing them. And a lot of these people will talk openly with me, like I've known them for like 4 or 5 years. And also what I've noticed in the mental health realm since I've been doing this is a lot of these people that have mental health issues are very open and they don't know it. They're very intuitive, very open, and they have no idea that they're like this or while they're seeing it. But as far as the schizophrenia goes, like I've had people that I'm the only one that doesn't think they're crazy, when they're talking to me.
Yes.
Like, it like makes sense to me. And they tell me about, the voices they hear. And I'm like, you're probably not crazy. You're probably actually hearing a voice and you're just sensitive to being able to hear this kind of stuff like many other people out there that just don't talk about it.
Yeah, because I have a friend who has schizophrenia, and she does get treatment and such. But when I interact with her, I realize that that's not schizophrenia. Like, she is just very sensitive and open to seeing energies, not just literally when she's awake, but also during sleep. But the problem is that sometimes these voices tend to get on the way. But I because she sounds very logical. She
Mhm.
sounds very analytical, very, very like a very mature human being, so I find it very odd that she was labeled like that, because it's more like a very sensitive medium, because she can communicate with spirits and she can hear them and she can see them, and it drives her crazy because sometimes both realities tend to mix and blur. So for her, it's kind of confusing to distinguish one thing from the other. So I feel that, like you said, she's just too open.
Yeah,
And when you're,
totally.
you're too open, you're labeled, and I feel that she's trying to control that ability, but so far it just happens, and I feel that it might be a lesson for her to go through in this lifetime, that not everyone will believe you, no one, but that doesn't mean that no one else in the rest of the world will believe you. Like, maybe the people close to you won't believe you, but there's always going to be someone out there who will relate to you and your situation, and even confirm to you a lot of things that perhaps you were wondering about but had no idea that other people were going through, but
Exactly.
that perhaps you were too shy to say about yourself, and other people just come in and confirm it for you. Like, learning to be more expressive and open and talkative about it.
Absolutely. And then I wanted to go back to one other thing you said. This is how my mind works. It kind of like randomly thinks of stuff we talked about like 20 minutes ago. Like when you were saying sometimes these negative spiritual beings come into your life for a reason, you kind of have to figure out why they're there and what's going on.
Yes.
That reminded me of a very intense situation I had. And that was my podcast with Zeta Zeta. For those of you who are seeing this video, you can see my pup that just joined me to end this show together. Hi, buddy. Hi, Sky. What's up? I gotta end the show. Thank you. Just give me a big old kiss for those of you listening. So he's gonna help me end the show here. Let me put him in the camera here. Anyway, for those of you who want to hear the rest of that story, you got to tune in next time for part 2 with Zion Zeta as we go into way more stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Tell me what you think. Like, subscribe, comment, whatever you'd like to do. If you're really offended by this episode and want to leave all kinds of negative comments, hey, I mean, all the power to you. But this is for people. If you really feel negative about this kind of stuff, you probably shouldn't be listening to it. And I recommend just kind of, if it triggers you, not to listen. For those of you who this really resonates, you really want to learn more, please tune in. And I thank you for all your support tuning in. If you guys are able to take a moment and leave us a review, whether it be on iTunes or whatever podcast listening station you can, that would be greatly appreciated to help us grow as well. And with love and light, I end this podcast, and I will see you guys next time. And remember, there's nothing to fear but fear itself.